The title of today's message is A Rule of Life. Do what you will, but first pray. This morning I'm going to start with some ideas I gleaned from an organization called Sacred Ordinary Days. They teach courses and run retreats to teach people to create and be guided by a rule of life. A rule of life is a commitment to live your life in a particular way. It's meant to be crafted with prayer and discernment in partnership with God and other people in the community. A rule of life can serve as a tool that can help you make decisions for your life and determine how to best order your days. An early example of a Christian rule of life comes from the Desert Fathers. They were a monastic community of mystics living in Egypt around the 3rd century AD. The most well-known rule of life is the rule of Saint Benedict, written 1,500 years ago, which was created to help his community of monks, translate their faith into the habits and rhythms of their shared daily life. His famous rule has inspired many communities and individuals to develop their own rules with a similar attention. Now, a rule of life can serve as a signpost, a railing, something that gives support as I move forward in my search for God. A rule of life serves as a gentle guide that keeps me trained towards God. In fact, rule in Latin is regula, which is actually a feminine noun, which has gentle connotations to it. Rules of life are not a list of tasks or goals to accomplish. Rather, a rule of life helps you become. It's comprised of several simple statements that guide the posture of your life. Through practice, these rules or principles move from the head to the heart and become integrated into our being. Pattern I've noticed in my life is first, I do things because they're suggested. Then I see that it works. Then it becomes part of who I am. In closing his first letter, in the letter we read to his friends in Thessalonica, the Apostle Paul presents what we might consider a rule of life for members of the new Christian community. Respect your leaders. Be at peace. Encourage the faint-hearted. Help the weak. Don't repay evil for evil. Do good to one another and to all. Rejoice always. Pray without ceasing. Give thanks. Test everything, holding fast to what is good. We might think of verses 16 through 22 as an early Pauline rule of life, which according to New Testament scholar N.T. Wright are, quote, designed for easy memorization, so that Paul's young church will quickly learn the language of Christian behavior. When we speak of learning by heart, we often mean by mind, with an effort of memory. But once that effort has been made, the heart takes on what is learned into itself until it becomes second nature, like a mother tongue. That's what Paul intends with this list. The early Christians knew a lot about suffering. Paul wanted them to learn how to celebrate in the midst of it. Learning to thank God for whatever he gives is sometimes difficult. But it goes with celebrating the lordship of Jesus over the world in advance of its being made public and generally recognized. And then the simplest but the most profound of basic moral rules: when you find something good, hold on to it fast with both hands, but keep clear from anything that even looks as though it might be evil. Learn these lessons, as relevant today as they ever were, and you've taken the first steps towards mastering Christian grammar. Along these same lines, in the 18th century, John Wesley, the founder of the Methodist movement, was asked how Christians should live in the world so that they are growing in grace and holiness together. In response, Wesley penned 3 simple rules for holy living. And now, will all the Methodists join me as one here? The 3: do good, do no harm, stay in love with God. I heard 2 of you. Thank you. Pastor Janet, great job. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, do good, do no harm, and stay in love with God. We do well to practice these 3 suggestions, moving them from our head to our heart and integrating them into our being. Do good, do no harm, stay in love with God. Can I tell you some stories? Be all right? I'll do it. When I was in high school, I was in a rock band called Rich Uncle Dick. That's the name of the band. The band was named after my Uncle Dick, who is rich. I learned from him an important portion of my own rule of life. Rich Uncle Dick helped me get into the outdoor advertising business, which brought me to San Antonio back in the last century. Realizing that despite a college degree, I really knew nothing about anything in the real world. So I asked him the question. I said, Rich Uncle Dick, what's the key to success in business and in life? And he answered this way. Well, just 2 things. Be honest and follow through. Be honest and follow through. These two suggestions became part of my rule of life from that point on. They've served me well in business, in ministry, in my marriage. Say hi to my wife, Pat. You can call her Pooh, I do. Hi, Pooh. So it served me well in business, in ministry, in marriage, and in life. I started being honest and following through because Rich Uncle Dick told me to. Then I noticed it worked. Now it's who I've become. Now, the collective wisdom of the 12-step recovery movement offered to me as a newcomer these 5 statements as a guide or rule of life for a newly recovering person. Don't drink or use or act out. Go to meetings. Work the program. Help others. And pray. I started doing these things because I was a mess and no clue about what to do about it. I really had no choice but to try what was suggested. I soon discovered it worked. If I didn't drink, I didn't get drunk. If I went to meetings, I would be in fellowship with like-minded people who actually had a solution. If I worked the program, I dealt with things like resentment, selfishness, dishonesty, and fear. And I started to learn how to live a life directed by honesty, unselfishness, love, and purity. If I helped others, I got out of myself. I don't know about you, but I've got a committee in my head most of the time. But if I'm helping you, I'm not thinking about me. It's kind of the magic bullet of 12-step recovery. They learned early on that one recovering person or one addict, alcoholic, helping another gets better. It helps me. Helps you too, I hope, but I don't have any control over that. But it does help me. It works. And lastly, pray. And I'll get into that a little more as we go on here. As I practice these 5 suggestions, they move from my head to my heart and now are part of who I am. I'm nearly 25 years sober and 2 years into my recovery in adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctional families. I'm a member of 2 other 12-step fellowships as well. And I'm good enough, and I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. Little Stuart Smalley reference there. Yeah. I attend meetings daily. I work the programs, carry the message, sponsor people, and finally, I pray. In fact, prayer is the engine that propels the rest of it. One of my 12-step sponsors or mentors named Ben C. brought my rule of life to a finer point when he told me, do what you will, but first pray. Paul's suggestion was to pray without ceasing. Ben really drilled this into me. As I've shared here before, I used to play in a bar band in town here. My stage name was Austin T. Healy, legend in my own mind. One night, I was playing a gig up on the northwest side of town, and Let me just say the environment wasn't one that was conducive to being a newly sober Christian gentleman. There was stuff going on there that I'm not going to share with you right now. It was during the fourth set that night. I remember saying, why am I here? This is ridiculous. And I looked across the dance floor and I saw the bar and I thought, God, that's close. Right? I was 6 months sober at the time. I thought, that's close. I decided right there, I can't do this anymore. I cannot do this bar band thing anymore. So I went home, went to sleep, woke up the next morning, and I called Ben, my sponsor. Now, sponsors in 12-step recovery, they're part mentor, they're part spiritual advisor, part drill sergeant, They share their experience, they help guide you through the steps, and sometimes they tell you what to do. And early on, that was good. I needed somebody to tell me what to do, how to be. So anyway, I decided, man, I need a musical outlet. I know, I'll call Ben. So I called Ben. I said, Ben, it's Chris. Man, I can't do this bar band thing anymore, but I need a musical outlet. And he said, well, have you prayed? And I said, well, no, not yet, but click. Oh, no, we got cut off. So I call again. Oh, Ben, we got cut off. So, well, have you prayed? So, well, no, not yet. Click. All right, jeez. Okay, I get it. All right. Okay, God, please give me a musical outlet. Amen. All right, so I call him back. Okay, Ben, I prayed. Well, what did you pray for? I said that God grant me a musical outlet. He said, well, good. When he has one for you, then you'll know. Goodbye. Great. So I had started going to this church on the north side of town. And so I went to the 11 o'clock service after talking to Ben. I sit down, and it was, a band like this, playing this type of music. And so I think these guys great. I mean, it just blows my help. I need somebody. I mean, incredible. And we have two guys sitting in, Mitch on guitar and Junior playing bass. They're not even part of the regular team. And but they just, fit like a glove. It's amazing. Anyhow, I go to the church and I sit down, and I don't know if you've ever been to a mega church on the north side, but they don't have bulletins. They have programs, right? And so I open the program, and it says, praise and worship team looking for guitar player. Audition on Wednesday. I go, oh my God, Ben's a genius. Ben's got a direct line to God. And so I joined the band. I went to the audition. I passed the audition. And from that point forward, I played more than I had ever played in a bar band. In different settings in front of more people. I mean, that place eventually sat 2,500 people once we built another facility. Big screens, the whole thing. Played under bridges. I played in prison. Played at the Argyle. Prison, Argyle. What's interesting at the Argyle, which is a private club here in San Antonio, what I was playing at was a ladies' Bible study led by a woman who did prison ministry. And she would bring people from the Argyle up to Gatesville to the women's prisons, and which was cool. So I played a lot. Got to go to South Africa, got to go to Australia, and it was a great experience. And that led me to playing sometimes here even. So I didn't even know any of that existed. I had no idea. So sometimes I pray, not just because Ben told me to, but sometimes I pray to open up to possibilities that I never knew existed. Sometimes I pray to remind myself that I need help and to remind myself that I am not the author and finisher of my recovery. When I was new in recovery, my first 3 days, in fact, I think it was day 3, I was in a meeting at Club 12, which is a AA recovery house over off San Pedro. Have nearly 80 meetings a week there. And so I was in a 10 o'clock smoking meeting. Smoking was required, I think, in fact. And you kind of had to bend down to see everybody because Oh, I smoke. Anyway, the guy in the meeting said he had 10 years sober at the time. I didn't know how I was going to stay sober. I didn't even understand what was happening here. But here's what he suggested. He said that he had done this for 10 years. He woke up every morning and asked God to keep him sane and sober. And then every night he thanked God for a good day of sobriety, even if the day stunk. And he didn't say stunk. He said another word, but I'm not going to say here in church. And so you know what? I'm going to incorporate that. I'm going to try that. So I started to. That next day, which was probably 10,000 days ago, nearly 25 years, I saying that prayer first thing in the morning. I did it this morning. God, please keep me sane and sober today. And then tonight I will thank him for a good day of sobriety. After about 2 weeks, I noticed, wow, this works. This is working. I'm not even thinking about it. This is incredible. So first I did it because he suggested. Then I did it because it worked. Now I do it because it's who I am. It's who I am. Figuring it out or hiring somebody never worked for me. Surrendering, following direction, praying, giving it a shot, that worked. And expressing gratitude at the end of the day reminds me that my recovery and life are a gift. I'm not the author and finisher of my recovery or my faith or my life, but God is. So I acknowledge that. Now I'd like to turn back to Paul's suggestion that we test everything. Sometimes when I pray, I need to test what I'm hearing to see if it's coming from God or from my ego. As my wife likes to say, my ego is not my amigo. Most of the 12-step programs of today can trace their roots back to something called the Oxford Group. Now, the four absolutes of the Oxford Group, which out back there, they'll put up on the screen here. The four absolutes of the Oxford Group were considered yardsticks in the earliest days of Alcoholics Anonymous. The four absolutes are honesty, purity, unselfishness, and love. I usually say it, honesty, unselfishness, love, and purity. That way I can remember them. HULP, H-U-L-P, HULP. Honesty, unselfishness, love, and purity. These are guides to keep us in tune with God's will in our lives. In 12-step recovery, we are also directed to continue to watch for resentment, selfishness, dishonesty, and fear. These are manifestations of self-will or ego. And in our inventory process, we look at those four things. In our 10th step, where we continue to take personal inventory, and when we're wrong, promptly admit it, we continue to watch for resentment, selfishness, dishonesty, and fear. We ask God to remove it at once. We discuss it with somebody, make amends if we've harmed anybody, and then resolutely turn our thoughts to others. So, a test for self-will, resentment, selfishness, dishonesty, fear. A test for God's will, honesty, purity, unselfishness, and love. I've learned to use these four absolutes during prayer or meditation as a way to differentiate between God direction and self or ego direction. As Paul suggested to the Thessalonians, to test everything and hold fast to what's good. They're a litmus test for me to discern whether I'm following Wesley's rule to do good and do no harm, or if I'm just doing my own thing. So now, you're going to be the fortunate recipients of hearing my bowling story. I get requests for my bowling story. So here it comes. We used to bowl, Pooh and I used to bowl in a bowling league. And the name of our team was the Alley Cats. And one night we go bowl in the league, and one of our members isn't there. So there's just three of us instead of four. So what that means is you can get done a little quicker. And Pooh was happy about that for some reason, that we would get done quicker. And but I'm sitting there, I'm putting my shoe on, and I hear over the loudspeaker, "Attention league bowlers, There's a substitute that would like to bowl tonight. Please come to the front desk. So they're tying my shoe. And I said, all right, God. And I'd just started practicing what I'm talking about here. I said, all right, God, should I ask that man to bowl? I heard the audible voice of the Lord, only time in my life. Go ask that man to bowl. I thought, all right, well, let me test that. All right? Would I be resentful, selfish, dishonest, and afraid as I'm tying my shoe? No. Would that be honest, unselfish, loving, and pure? Yeah, that'd be the loving thing to do. And that'd be the unselfish thing to do. Yeah, I'm going to give this a shot. So, finish tying my shoe. I stand up. I start walking over towards the front desk. My wife says, where are you going? I said, I've heard the audible voice of the Lord. So I went, asked the man to bowl. In the first game, the man bowled a 300. He bowled a perfect game. I bowled a 269, which probably by 80 pins is probably more than I ever bowled in my life. That game was the high game gross and net for the year in the league of 37 weeks. We won enough money to pay for all our bowling for the whole year as a result of that game. It's funny though, when a guy's bowling a 300, you don't say anything. You get about to the seventh frame and you think, well, something's going on here. He's bowling all strikes and you don't say anything. You don't want to jinx it, right? But somehow by the ninth frame, everybody in the entire bowling center knows what's going on, right? And so they all kind of came over to watch this guy bowl the ninth and 10th frame. For the 10th frame, his wife, who had never showed up to watch him bowl, she showed up for some reason, right? And watched him bowl the 300. He was the happiest boy in the whole USA, trust me, at the end of that. And so was I. I mean, it was really, really, really terrific. So sometimes when I pray, I have to test it. And when I test it, sometimes I get good results. It's not always like that, but I've learned that. Sometimes I pray to see if it's coming from me, and I test it to see if it's coming from me or from my ego. And that's what that incident taught me for sure, to test it. And I can trust it. So a couple other types of prayer I do are centering prayer and the serenity prayer. And as the worship team returns to the platform, if you were here last week, the worship team returned to the platform about 3 minutes into Ryan's sermon. And so I thought I'd make it clear. Hurry up. I'd also like to welcome my friend Ben from the Pioneer Group. Ben, why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Ben. I started my recovery journey June 8th, 2022 at the Haven for Hope ITP program.
All right. With centering prayer, sometimes I shut down, I pray because I need to shut down the committee in my head. I need to remind myself that the past is history, the future is a mystery, and right now the present is a gift. Centering prayer helps me to rest in God's presence. With the serenity prayer, sometimes I pray to keep the focus on what needs to change. Or should I say, who needs to change? Me. A version of the serenity prayer that we use in adult children of alcoholics goes like this. God, grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, the courage to change the one I can, and the wisdom to know that one is me. So sometimes I pray to keep the focus on me. What needs to change? Me. So what I'd like to do here in conclusion and to end is just get quiet for 2 minutes. Ben's going to play for a minute. What I encourage you to do is just sit with your eyes closed, feet on the floor if you're comfortable, spine erect. just get in touch with your breath. Before you go out for the rest of your day and do as you will, I'm offering you an opportunity to first pray. Like Ben says, do as you will, but first pray. We're going to pray the way we do at the beginning of every Pioneer group. This is the way we do it. Ben plays his violin for a minute as we get centered, getting in touch with our breath. Then for a minute we do a little version of centering prayer, where we just rest in God's presence. As our mind wanders, as we have thoughts and fears and fantasies pop into mind, just return your attention back to your breath for that 1 minute. We want to shut down that ego that's on overdrive. I want to shut down my magnifying mind. I want to quiet down that committee who's telling me, you're no good, you're no good, you're no good, baby, you're no good. I want to shut that down. Yeah. So we'll do that for a minute just in silence after Ben plays. Then we'll finish with the Serenity Prayer, which I'll have up on the screen. So, just take a moment and get in touch with your breath. Go ahead, Ben. Now for 1 minute, let's just be here, starting now. And now, the Serenity Prayer. As they put it on the screen. All right, just follow me. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. And now, remember, do what you will, but first pray. Be honest and follow through. Ask God for the power to do that. Go drink some green beer. It's all right. St. Patrick's Day. Yeah. But do what you will, but first pray. Slow down those squirrels in your head. Remember that we're not responsible for the world. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May we all find him now. Strong name of Jesus, all God's people said, Amen.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Weekly Teaching. To watch the full live stream of this worship service, you can view all archived streams at the Alamo Heights UMC YouTube channel. If you have any questions, email us at podcasts@ahumc.org. That's podcasts@ahumc.org. You can also visit our website, ahumc.org, anytime. Any related links are also in this episode's show notes. Again, thank you so much for being a listener. We truly appreciate your time.